Back to the Boardroom Surfboard, the Boardroom International Surfboard Expo here in Del Mar, California. Dave Stanfield, what a fantastic start to kick things off here. We had Chris Morrow earlier mediating the industry and talking about what's the latest and greatest in the surfboard world. Then we brought MR in, absolute legend, 4-time world champion, one of the best shapers ever. Now, who else do we have on the set?
Well, you know, you've got people that are very special, and in Formula One, it's the guys that drives the cars, and then who makes the cars? The manufacturers. And a lot of time in surfing, it's all about the guys surfing, but you go back to the manufacturers, you know, the guys making the equipment. Then you have the surfer shapers, and we have a legend right here, Reno Abellira. Reno, good to see you.
Good to see you, Dave.
Hey, you are here.
Todd.
And you got in a hot seat right off the bat because
right.
You're one of the 6 surfers in here for the icons of foam. You started shaping yesterday, right?
Right. I was included in the well, at that time it was called Sacred Craft, and
right.
It was the same thing. There was a shape off of six shapers for. At that one was a tribute to Dick Brewer, so I was included in that one, and it was a big honor for me to be included in MR's one because I helped MR quite a bit when he was in Hawaii. He for like 5 years in a row, he ordered his special winter quiver, which included 2 of my boards every winter. And he kept going back to this one, his magic board. So I always had a 7/8, and this is during the lightning bolt era. I made him a 7/8 wing round pin, and that was the board that I call it his freeride special because he got it. I mean, even now, most of the photos you see of our MR doing that heavy bottom turn at Pipeline or Sunset, it's my board. So it's big. It's a great validation, I guess, to say that MR and I. And then part of the history of this show is that we were competing against each other in Australia, and I brought down my version of a fish, a twin fin, and I'd made some alterations to it that made it more of a surfboard, more so than a knee board. But the original design was a knee board fish from Steve Liss.
Right here in San Diego.
But I changed it quite a bit. I put real, normal surfboard fins on it, twin fin it, towed them out, angled them in, and that was the board I needed for the smallest waves that I would encounter in Australia. And it worked really well. I got a second place against Simon Anderson, and then Mark, who's always had an open mind about everything that he rides. He was riding Stingers. He was riding I put Stingers, and he saw the twin fin and said, "Hey, you've got to come by Merriweather. You got to come and I've got to check out the shape. I got to take the rocker template." He was like, so. Well, I was where are you going with this? He says, "I've got to make a version of that, And I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it because his dad was super gracious. Ray Richards was a super gracious man. God bless him. And so I got invited down there. They fed me dinner, and then right on straight in the shaping room. MR is one thing. He's always had a very calculating, approach to his surfing. So of course the surfboards were part of that. So he took rocker templates. He took outline templates, dimensions, and the whole 9 yards. And the following year, he made his version of that, and he mixed in other elements and a lot of, with the V and the harder edge. And there was a as a design push, he couldn't be touched on that board especially in the Australian circuit. He was just doing everything. He became the future of the surfing. There's always somebody that was practically unbeatable, and on his way to the following 2 or 3 years, he became world champion. So, I kind of helped him usher in that phase of his career, and but he's always given me credit for it, and the fact that I did, build most of his boards in Hawaii was like,
You were so gracious that you showed so much aloha for a really great guy, and at that time, were you a protege of Jerry? You were working with the miniguns with Dick Brewer.
Right.
I mean, you were right in the thick of things, and you see these people that are coming to Hawaii to take your money and take your titles, but you had you shared with them everything.
Well, the thing was that the Aussies were super competitive, and I at one time in the heat of the Aussie tussle and conflict on the North Shore that was going on, which really had nothing to do with anybody's quality of surfing. It was just more of a political tussle, and some, the localism was rearing its ugly head, so to speak. And with some reason there, because the Aussies were very, and there was sort of a lack of respect that happened. But MR himself was always a respectful guy, super mellow, always, I was approached by somebody and said, hey, why are you making the Aussie surfboards? Almost like threateningly, why are you making the Aussie surfboards? And I go, hey, if I can't beat the guy on my own design, plus the fact that he's paying me to shape it, then I guess he's better. So MR was, that guy.
Dick Brewer, part of your life.
Sure. Yeah.
And, what did you learn from Dick?
Oh, everything. I mean, if not for Dick, he came. We came into each other's lives at a certain point. My dad and a dear uncle of mine had just died. So in a way, I was probably looking for a surrogate father. My uncle had been a very famous musician and composer in Hawaii. And he said, live your dream. And part of living that dream was really to hook up with RB, because RB became like a surrogate dad to me. And I became his, a vessel that we could pour in what was becoming the future of surfboards. It was the shortboard revolution. And, we were discovering how fast we could go on a wave, how we could make the barrel more friendly, how short a board could we ride in big waves. And we pretty much built all the prototypes between Jerry, myself, and RB. There, we had a conspiracy of sorts that, shorter, lighter, faster was sort of the byword. So a lot of what you see in the modern high-performance shortboard, we pretty much worked out in the early 70s to mid-70s. There was a whole design revolution that we kind of validated and went with, and RB was certainly the guru, if you can say that, because he taught both Jerry and I how to shape. And even though we went on to our own shaping careers, he was the master, and to this day is.
Reno, you talk about the evolution that you were a part of in boards getting smaller. What is your thought now, seeing guys like Kelly and others that have gone so short with their equipment out at Pipeline?
I think these guys are such superb athletes, and their water knowledge is so acute that they've taken what is especially at a place like Pipeline, where they're riding the shortest board possible, making the latest takeoffs, taking off the deepest with the most tube-friendly board. Really, because a narrow, thinner board is going to hold in, and you can maneuver inside the barrel, and that's what it's all about when you get that deeply tubed. Last year I watched John in that famous heat against Kelly and stuff. It's like, these guys are doing what they're supposed to do in the barrel, and avoiding getting hit by the lip and staying stuck high in the barrel and moving and going super fast, of course, and coming out. That's what and with a bravado that it's just it's almost too casual.
You really know about everybody. You're so complimentary about everybody. But we got to shine the spotlight on you, especially Smirnoff, 1974.
Okay. Right.
Tell us about that event. That was a breakthrough event, obviously for you. Your biggest win.
I was, on the North Shore in the early seconds, we sort of had a golden decade where we were designing the best boards that would ride places like Sunset Beach and Waimea Bay, and we were riding probably the best equipment under those conditions without the crowds. So there's a handful of guys that were, the best at certain spots, and I like to consider myself one of the guys that was best at Sunset. And I had a bunch of boards that would ride, were groomed for Sunset, but I had gotten some experience at Waimea. And the guy that, he set the high standard, a guy named Jeff Hackman at Sunset. I mean, there's Barry Kanaiapuni and of course Eddie Aikau, but as far as the perfect Sunset deep fade bottom turn, that was Jeff. So part of me, we grew up together surfing as Grammys, but I was always in the shadows, so to speak. So the day at Waimea, the only guy that I was concerned about was Jeff, because he was in the finals with me, and we were like, But the day itself, I've watched most of the eddies. I've competed. My last eddy I competed in was in '91. as far as sheer size and volume, I think to this day, the waves are still bigger on that 74 Smirnoff. That this last one, that Greg Long one, got it close, but the sets weren't just a few feet shorter.
MR won the following year, but
Yes.
74, tell us the board you were on and tell us
Okay,
how challenging.
I rode a board that was too long, actually. I rode a 911 because I wasn't taking chances. I want to get the wave. I want to get the wave. And I rode the board, and the year previous, the year that I won, it was a 9-1. So that's quite a gap. And I sacrificed ease of paddling and dropping in and MR rode the right size board for that day. I think it was a 9-footer. So, and MR was ready. You know, he had been pushed back the year previous and probably, you know, wasn't ready for the equipment-wise or anything, but he was ready with the Parrish gun that he rode. And the waves it was still Waimea, but it was quite a bit smaller. So I blew it on equipment choice, but I was still in the finals, so I said.
But behind the scenes, these guys respected all one another. They were in the shaping room.
Some did.
Yeah, I mean, there was some love in there in the shaping room because you needed that equipment. I mean, there's that backstory to busting down the door in that era. Obviously, there was a political aspect, but yeah, you guys respected each other in the water.
Right. I mean, you know, we had to. You know, in some cases, we were depending on each other in case something happened. You know, you were
no
there.
jet ski, no water
You were
patrol.
there, but the thing is that everyone's ability level. If somebody took off behind you on a deep, heavy takeoff, or was in front of you, you knew that guy's ability. And sad to say, you know, things have changed. There's so many people in the water trying to prove themselves that you don't know that level of ability. And the crowd factor is a more dangerous aspect of riding the big waves now because you just don't know who this guy is. And you can pick out the better guys, of course. And, you know, the bigger wave spots are a lot of the guys are paddling in. Paddling in has become, you know, found a resurgence. So guys are going out to the outer reefs and riding bigger waves, and the outer islands they're paddling in more again. So that's also validating because, you know, not every big wave should be ridden on a jet ski and towed in, you know. So and the guys that are doing that, and it's guys like Shane Dorian, the younger guys that are, you know, they know, you know, perhaps what they couldn't achieve on a really tiny board, they're now riding 10-6 guns and, you know, going out there and charging again.
Where are you shaping? What's your website?
You can get me at www.renoabellira.com. That's my new website. You know, I do all the shapes. My specialty are guns, of course. I do a high-performance longboard, and I still do a lot of shortboards because I'm still in the water. I'm like most surfer shapers. You were trying to keep that balance between too much work and not enough surf. So it's like I try to keep it 50-50. You know, it doesn't make sense to me to shape a beautiful board or do these custom orders if I'm not in the water experiencing what the whole purpose is. So I'm back on the North Shore and you know, riding my favorite spots like Lani Kea and, you know,
stoked as ever.
Yeah, well, I am stoked. I am stoked because you know, part of the show has really stoked me because part of the reason I continue to shape is like the variety of surfboards that one should ride. You shouldn't be stuck on one type of surfboard. And unfortunately, a lot of the kids follow, you know, they will only ride that 6'2", 18 by da-da-da, and whatever, you know, Kelly's riding or John. And what I've seen at this show is that a lot of kids, the younger crew, are thinking outside of the box and riding everything. I mean, I get goosebumps again because I'm seeing, you know, concept boards and the whole, you know, asymmetricals and slabs and just the whole. I mean, it's like I'm going, wow, finally, you know, because now it's not like everyone's being spoon-fed this type of board, and with that longboarding, which you know, enriches or validates the whole rich history of surfing from the 50s and 60s, is, you know, a big part of what surfing is still today. You know, the guys on longboards doing the amazing stuff, and of course, got to include the girls doing their thing. And, you know, I see a lot of girls in Hawaii excellent girl surfers riding, challenging conditions. So I'm stoked that the blue crush effect is still in effect.
Well, Reno, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah.
One more plug for your website.
Yeah, it's www.renoabellira.com.
Well, a legend of our sport in the water and in the shaping bay. More to come live here in Del Mar, California. We'll see you soon.